Hello and welcome to Keeping It Real, where we learn from the most interesting people in real estate. We got a good one for you this week. We are going to learn about managing your energy level as an introverted real estate agent, tips for lead gen as an introverted real estate agent, and managing potentially, if you're the broker, of or managing introverted agents. Keeping It Real has been around for years, and we have had some absolutely outstanding guests. So definitely scroll back through our back catalog. There is a ton of knowledge bombs to be had in there. Check them out. One final note before we get started. The unofficial Real Geeks user conference is coming. It is October 18th, 19th, and 20th in Dallas, Texas. If you're interested in checking that out, we recommend it here at Keeping It Real. Just Google unofficial Real Geeks user conference. It's the quickest way to find it. It'll be the first result. You'll see everything you need to do. And Todd and his team do an excellent job putting on that. In fact, we'll be talking to him in the next Keeping It Real. But today, we're going to be talking to Ashley Harwood. I'm Chris Whitling, VP of Marketing here at Real Geeks. I'm going to kick it over to Ashley. Ashley, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Chris. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm Ashley Harwood. I run a company called Move Over Extroverts. Sorry, Extroverts. That's the name of the company. Uh, so I'm a coach, trainer, and speaker. I've been in the real estate world as an agent and a coach and trainer for 9 years now, since 2013. I'm based in the Boston area, and I've had the privilege of training and speaking to thousands of agents all over the country, including at Inman, which was a huge honor. That just happened earlier this month, yes. I do one-on-one coaching, I teach workshops, and my whole mission is working with the introverts in the real estate world.
Love it. This is going to be excellent. So just tying into the Inman thing, that's where you and I met, and we were introduced by Frank, who longtime listeners slash viewers of the show will know as our former host. So small world here in the real estate industry. Excellent. Okay. First thing, I might be most excited about this aspect of it, which is we're going to do some myth busting. So I think when a lot of people think about real estate agents, they think about like the consummate, like extroverted salesperson. And so help me bust this one. Are there introverted real estate agents?
Yes, there are. There are a lot of us. In fact, some of the top agents, many of the top agents in the industry are in fact introverts. You might not know it. Some of them might not even know it about themselves. However, there are fewer and fewer of the super high energy, super aggressive car salesman person out there in the world. That's not as much a thing as it used to be.
Do you think, well, actually, talk to me first about like what constitutes like introverted versus extroverted for someone that hasn't heard these terms before, maybe.
Right. So, good question. This is another myth. A lot of people assume that introverts are very quiet and shy and reserved, and extroverts are very loud and outgoing. And, the words that I just used to describe the car salesman, which is not actually what it is at all. There are quiet extroverts in the world, there are very social introverts. Here's the difference. The definition of an introvert is someone who gets their energy from being alone. Their energy is replenished by being alone versus an extrovert who needs to be around other people to replenish their energy. So, a very quick litmus test, think about a conference. A lot of conferences happening right now. When you're at a conference, you're in the sessions all day, you're around thousands of people, you go to dinner with people from your office, and then everyone wants to go out afterwards. How are you feeling at the end of that? Do you want to go out? Are you like, where's the after party? Or are you completely done and ready to go back to your room and be alone? That's an easy test.
Got it. So, is this like a spectrum thing, or is this like people tend to fall on one side or the other?
It's very much a spectrum thing. Yeah, most people are somewhere in the middle.
Excellent. And what do you think about like, I mean, I've taken a million personality tests being in the, corporate world. and the way that those things test out. Because I know that I've been asked that question on these tests, but do you think those tests like really provide like an accurate representation, or do you people need to kind of like look inside and see what they think?
I think they're an okay way to start. If you only have 5 minutes, hop onto 16personalities.com and take the free test, and that's a good jumping off point. I think if you really want to go deeper and if you're a person who's into self-awareness and self-improvement, it is worth taking the time to read a book. I have a very specific book rec for you guys. It's called Quiet. The author
Mm,
is Susan Cain. It is the definitive book on introversion.
got it. So, what drew you into real estate? Because I'm guessing you identify as the introvert, right?
I do now. It's interesting. I had no idea I was an introvert until I was already in real estate for a couple of years. No
Ex-
idea.
okay. What like tipped that off?
I read that book. And then
Okay.
I was like, this explains why I'm so tired all the time and why I'm so anxious all the time because I didn't understand how my energy worked. So I was going, going, going and peopling all day and peopling all night and not giving myself time to recharge. And so I was just exhausted and didn't know why.
Right. Right. Yeah, this is an interesting one. And you've got me like questioning, like I always test out as extrovert, but kind of on the line. But, I've definitely been on the road with the hardcore extrovert and they're charged up by the end of the day and I'm ready to pass out.
Yeah. So
Uh,
you're familiar with the idea of it being a spectrum.
right. Definitely. Okay, so other than this sort of like energy level up and down, are there anything else that you like might look at that would kind of be key indicators that this person might be an introvert? Is it like social interaction, or like the certain maybe like actions that they gravitate towards, anything like that?
Mm, there are trends. There aren't. I try not to prescribe anything, and
Right.
I try not to put people in boxes, which I understand is ironic given what I do for a living. Um, but in general, because of this energy concept, introverts as a whole tend to have fewer close friends and they tend to build deeper relationships because they don't have enough energy to go around and build deep relationships with 500 people. Like we can't do it. It's not
Hmm.
possible. So we need to be cognizant of where we're spending that energy and make it the most impactful. And the biggest like ROE is deeper relationships, which in real estate results in referrals.
Okay, return on energy, I'm guessing. Okay,
Yep,
we're
that's
we're gonna
right.
come back and spend a lot of time on this. One question I've been dying to ask is, do you think that introverts are potentially better at like discovery with clients because of a desire to like be intaking information rather than projecting it?
Yes, I do think so. I think innately that is a strength that we have, and it can certainly be learned. And I'm sure there are lots of extroverts who are also very good at that as well. I'm not discounting that. And I do think that introverts, because of just the way that we're wired, we do ask a lot of questions. We go deeper. We try to get to know someone quicker because we don't have enough time to spend there. We don't want to be there for 3 hours. We want to like cut through the chit chat and get to the core of what's important. And so we can get out of there and be alone in the car.
Got it. Got it. Excellent. Okay, let's dive into this managing energy thing because this is one of the things you've alluded to it. So I mean, take it away. Where do you want to start?
So the easiest way, and I could talk about this for 5 hours, which I won't do today. The easiest way to think about it is to think about your phone battery and
Mhm.
the way that that charges. You plug it into the wall at night, it gets up to 100% charge. Great. You unplug it, and automatically it starts to lose its charge just a little bit. You're not even using it, but it's still the battery levels going down a little bit. And then you start opening it, you're using apps, doing different things. different apps and different functions on your phone will drain the battery faster. Same thing in our lives with our energy. Certain conversations you have with certain people will zap your energy. I'm sure everyone listening can think of an example of when that's happened versus if you're, hanging out with your, loved ones, then it's not as much an energy drain, if at all. So I encourage people to start thinking of it in these terms and just being aware of what things are more draining than others so that you can make better decisions about when you're scheduling the most important things, like your listing appointments. That should not happen when you're completely drained of energy. So if you know what things drain and what things replenish, then you can be strategic about when you're scheduling those important things. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I think we might be leading to one of the first differences in your ideas versus some of our other guests. So this is going to be exciting. So what drains the battery the fastest? What's the GPS app?
It is a GPS app. It's different for everyone. For me, it is one of the things that drains me really quickly is having a difficult or an uncomfortable conversation with somebody. Like if I have to tell a buyer they didn't get the house,
Mm,
I'm completely zapped after that.
makes sense. Makes sense.
And even listing appointments are extremely stressful. I shouldn't say stressful. Even though they're not stressful, they are pretty draining. So I wouldn't choose to have, you know, two or three back to back in one day. I would be, by that last one, I would not be in the right headspace to be bringing my A game.
So basically, it kind of sounds like the idea is to be cataloging what activities you find like draining versus restorative, and then scheduling them, maybe across a week or something like that, so that you can like maximize your return. Is that the right way to characterize it?
It is, yeah. And another way to think about it that's pretty easy is it's the same concept as spending money or
Hmm.
spending time.
Got it.
It's
Do you
so
have recommendations for someone that's like just like we're exposing them to this concept for the first time? Like, is it journaling? Is it taking notes in your phone app? Like, how do you get people to like start thinking about this and I mean, collecting data if you're a nerd like me?
yeah. That's how I describe it. When I teach classes and I talk about this, I do talk about collecting the data first and then you
Hmm.
can make decisions. So journaling is awesome. I love it. It is not unless you create a system to track the data in your journal and you go back to it every day. It might get a little cumbersome. The easiest way is just to take your calendar and put a little plus or minus after each activity. And then at a glance, you can look at the week before and see, wow, I had a lot more minuses than pluses. That's why I was so tired. Okay, well, what can we change?
Gotcha. So you mentioned listing appointments. You mentioned like, kind of doing, bad news or something like that. Sounds like that's not something you can really, you know, uh, schedule.
Control or
Uh,
consider it.
right. So that's going to just kind of come at you. But how do you like people to like, if someone's like, okay, help me, give me a template to like help structure my day. Like, what do you kind of think goes like before and after?
So I would ask them when they have the highest energy.
Hmm.
For most people, not all, but the majority of people have their highest energy first thing in the morning.
Yep.
And I'm sure we've all heard that you should do your lead gen first thing in the morning. We've all heard this.
I'm
They're not,
nodding vigorously right now. Yes, in
yeah,
fact, we've done several podcasts with some of our excellent coaches who know what they're talking about, and that's what they prescribe.
yeah. And
Yep,
and there's a reason for that because you have the highest energy and so that you get it out of the way and the whole eat the frog concept. So
yep,
I completely agree with that. For the majority of people doing the thing that's going to be very impactful in your business, like your lead gen, your lead follow up, that should happen when you have the most energy, which is usually in the morning for most people. And if you know that that is going to be totally draining for you, then after you're done, it's important to schedule something that's going to recharge you. So
Mm,
maybe that looks like a yoga class or a nap or something in the middle of the day. And that way you're like essentially plugging yourself into the wall to get back up to go do the rest of the things you need to do in the afternoon.
I love this. I think because I think this is something that you don't hear often. Normally the advice is like, you wake up and you grind all the way until the end of the day and then you go to sleep. Something like that. And so I love the advice. It's like, yeah, you might need to recharge in the middle of the day. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And to go back to one thing that we were talking about, which is not being able to predict or schedule when you have to have those tough phone calls or
Mhm.
something comes up that's unexpected, which is just the nature of life and real estate.
Yep.
For that reason, it's important to always have a baseline and not drop down below a certain threshold. You're not going to drive around with your gas light on at all times in your car. That's dumb. You're going to go fill it up because you don't know if you're going to have an emergency and have to drive 50 miles to a hospital somewhere.
Do I'm trying to figure out how to formulate this question. But you're thinking about that gaslight. Is that an internal gaslight, or do you
Yeah.
think that that is like very much externally visible?
I think it's mostly internal. I think the only time it becomes visible is in your interactions with other people. Some warning signs of getting to that level, or maybe you're past that level. For me, anyway, I'm not going to speak for others, but I get kind of snippy and impatient. Seriously, I get
Yeah.
like it's the same as being hangry.
Right.
I get irritable and I'm not able to deal with difficult things as well when my energy battery is super low.
Yep. Yep. No, I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, I actually experienced that.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a day that's rapid fire, right? You kind of get into that rapid fire mode, and then it's like, you know,
Yeah.
people get rapid fire responses. Um, Excellent. Okay, so if a day's going like totally sideways on you, 911, what are your recommendations?
Get into a place where you can recharge as fast as possible. If you can walk away from it and deal with it tomorrow, do that. If you
Do
can
that.
pull in somebody else to deal with it, do that.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe is that a segue perhaps into delegation? Like delegating some tasks that you might not find or you might find extra draining, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go back to your schedule, look at what you're doing throughout the day. Are there any pieces of it that are ridiculously draining and not giving you actually, how do I want to say this? There's two options. If something is super draining and it's not giving you any results, cut it out entirely. If something is super draining and you are seeing results, but there may be somebody else you can leverage to help you with that thing, then do that. And that will buy you, it's like buying your time back, but you're also buying your energy back.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. In preparation for this show, I was thinking through some of the agents that I know, some of them in particular that are just, killers, like total monsters. You would think stereotypically, like this guy must be an extrovert. But then in the interactions, I've definitely seen the battery discharge. Uh, but I know that that person has prioritized their daily workflow for the things they're excellent at. And the one I'm thinking of in particular, the guy's a negotiation beast. And so he leaves his, sort of client acquisition to the agents that work for him, and then likes to show up, to make the deal.
That is very wise. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I want to move into some of the like specific tips. So you have mentioned that you have potentially some unique strategies for lead generation, which we're always all about the new ideas for lead generation. So come on, lay it on us. What's the good stuff?
Dude, I have a PDF of like 80 ideas that are just runs the gamut. Usually how what I tell people is to start with where you're already spending time. We are heading into back to school season. If you have kids in school, oh my God, the other parents, that's a huge opportunity. And lead gen, I also want to make clear that lead gen is not, it shouldn't be this big, scary, annoying thing. Shouldn't be a frog that's on your calendar every morning. It should be simply checking in on people, reaching out to people, finding people who need your help. That's it. This is people business. It's not like, let's pound the phone and try to sell some houses. No, let's reach out to people, whatever means that looks like for you. Maybe it's on the phone, maybe it's other ways, and see how you can help them. So my
I like that
favorite,
perception shift. Yeah, it's good.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then all you have to ask yourself, once you've made that shift in your mind, all you have to say is, okay, how do I want to find people to ask if they need my help? What's the medium that's going to be comfortable enough for me to actually do it on a consistent basis?
nice. Okay, so
So
you,
tips. All right, let me give you.
tips. I
All
mean,
right.
like, come on, give me the tips.
All right, one of the hot topics right now that I'm hearing a lot about. I've heard about this for years, and I don't know why more people aren't really doing it, but building relationships with divorce attorneys,
Mm,
especially coming out of the pandemic era, a lot of relationships changed, and finding those people who you can be their go-to real estate agent. Maybe they had an agent and their agent's now out of the business, and now you can come in and be their new go-to agent. Or you can be one of two, or you can cover a different area, whatever. Like the best way to find them too is to ask for a recommendation.
right, right. Okay, like it. It's a little bit like will require a deft touch with those, clients, I'm sure. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but there's a need there. There are people who
definitely,
need your help.
definitely need. Yeah,
Yeah. Another real untapped resource is agent to agent referrals. And not even
excellent.
just across the country. Of course, across the country is helpful too, but within your own market area. Like what's the next market? So for me, I live in the outskirts of Boston. There's a very clear line where there's people who work in the city and will not cross that line, and there's people who work in the suburbs and they will not come into the city. So even within your area, you can probably build some really great agent relationships with people who will send you a lot of referrals because they don't want to drive there.
Right, right. Uh, I'm picturing right now Boston, and as an aside, it's like the mileage is small, but the difference in like setup is always huge. Um, yeah, excellent. Good options. Okay, so I want to go back to maybe the cold calling. So we talked a little bit about the perception shift, but like thinking about like return on energy is do you like let's think about like the way that it actually manifests on the calendar. Like I think the prescription from a lot of coaches is like you block out 2 hours and you grind your way all the way through it, like as many phone calls as you can make. It's sort of like the Wolf of Wall Street style approach to handling the phones. Like in terms of actually making the calls, how do you like to approach it?
Me personally,
Sure.
I hate making cold calls. I've done it. I've done it. My
Yeah.
first year and a half in the business,
Yep.
I paid for the, subscription and made the calls and went on the appointments. It was not for me. And I stuck with it because I saw so many other people having success with it. So I found the other things I was doing in that same time frame, I was doing that in the morning, and then in the afternoons and evenings, I was going to networking events. And for me,
Mm,
I found those to be a lot more successful. I was getting traction with those because I was meeting people in person, and I suck on the phone. I'm okay admitting that. So what I advise my clients to do, if they've never tried cold calling, if they've never given it a valiant effort and learned the scripts, do it. Give it a shot because you might be good at it and it's a proven method. It's also important to make sure that whatever cold calling you're doing, you have a good reason to call them, right?
Right.
So I love circle prospecting around a just sold that had 10 offers. Like that is such a great type of cold call because you have a reason. It's not just like, hey, I don't know you. Do you want to move? You're like, no, there are buyers who want to be in this neighborhood. And they're like, really? And yes, because they don't know. Zillow doesn't tell you how many offers there were.
Right. Right. So I think, that's not just this is getting into the realm of just great marketing, near and dear to my heart. But having a good reason to call them, great, or finding that reason, in the data before. I love that. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. Um, are there scripts that you like to use or anything that's like, for someone just starting out, that is useful?
Um, I don't have a ton of scripts that I use. I like to keep things just very conversational. I do like to always ask how I can help them
Mhm.
or who they would like to be introduced to, specifically if you're, more on the networking side and meeting with other business owners, who would be a valuable introduction to you? How can I help you in your business? Maybe we can do some sort of co-branded thing or a video, or I can showcase you or something.
Right.
And then shifting gears, let's take it back to school. If you have kids in school or sports, whatever, one great script is just asking somebody who's an acquaintance who you just met what they do for work. You're sitting on the field. I don't really know the sports so well, but I imagine there's a field or sometimes a rink,
Me either.
perhaps.
I'm not a sports
I don't
ball
know.
guy.
There's some sort of venue where the children are playing and the parents are all standing there for 2 hours just bored. What do you do for work? Ask a couple follow-ups. At some point, they'll ask you the same question, and then you can talk about real estate. That's one of my favorite scripts.
Right, right. I like your kung fu move here of like, oh, I don't like cold calling. I found something that worked better for me, which is networking events. And so maybe we'll like refocus a little bit on that. Uh,
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally didn't answer your question.
no, I'm giving you a compliment for redirecting me.
Oh, thank you.
But also like it legitimate, like, so one of the things that I talk a lot about, being a data driven marketer is, I track the performance of everything. And it's one of the reasons why we really like using a CRM, right? So you can say, okay, this was a cold call lead, or this one came from an area page, or this one, so like trying to track the ROI of every individual lead source, right? So it sounds like for you, you figured out, okay, I was given the advice when I was a new agent that you got to grind the phones. And then I figured out that that wasn't the most effective use of my time and energy, and that networking was. So, maybe we can take a peek into what worked for you. Like, how did you find the networking events? Like, which style of events worked the best for you? And then, like, what kind of conversations were you aiming to have once you were there?
Yes. And I will say that everyone should have a CRM and be tracking their lead sources, their sources of business, their referrals, all of that. So important because that way
Yes.
you'll know where to redirect your time and energy. So I'm glad you said that. So for me, I just started Googling networking events. I didn't know where to find them. I just Googled and I found a lot of different ones. I attended a lot of different ones. It's a trial and error, really. I didn't know what I was doing. I just found the ones that I liked and I kept going to those. And then again, I was tracking everything. So after about a year of that, I wrote down everything I was doing, all the events I was, not events, all the groups I was a part of. And some of them I joined a committee and I got really involved. So I tracked how much time I was spending per month in every group, how much money it was costing me, and the return. What did I get out of it? And then I made decisions about which groups to leave and where to spend more time in the other ones. So legit was just Googling. I ended up, my biggest sources of business were the Chamber of Commerce and BNI.
Nice. Nice. I mean, I love this story because it like combines the connection to tracking your lead sources and data, as well as like just the new agent, like getting out there and trying things. It's very cool. Um, okay, so you prompted a thought that came to me. So I know a lot of people that are kind of afraid to go to networking events, and so they will view like maybe cold calling or text messaging is easier because you maybe get to hide behind that layer of technology or something like that versus in person. Did you find that that was the case? Were you like having to amp yourself up and like turn on the super you to go to these events, or was it just something that came a little bit more naturally?
For me, it came more naturally. I will say it does fall on my draining list. So I had to make sure
Yeah,
I wasn't doing too many over the course of a week
right.
and that I gave myself time. Like I would go home and nap. If I had an evening event and I was just not feeling it, I would go home and take a nap before I went to the event to be able to get through it. And there was one time in particular, I remember I'd already paid for it and I was about to drive over to the event. And I had had like 5 coffee meetings in a row that day, and I was so exhausted. It was an hour drive away, and I'm like, I'm not going to this event. And I just went home. I skipped it because I
Yeah,
knew that if I went and I drained myself talking to people and then tried to drive an hour back, I would probably fall asleep and crash my car. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
I just
prioritizing your time and energy. Yep.
and safety. Yeah. So for me, it came naturally, and that's what I like to encourage people to discover for themselves. Like, don't make it harder than it needs to be. Try a bunch of different things and stick with what is working and what comes more naturally to you. Yeah, you might be a little bit uncomfortable, but whatever you're doing, whatever method you're using to go and find new people to help, it shouldn't be absolutely miserable every second of it, because then you're not going to do it and stick with it.
Right. Okay. Again, another great tip. Like it shouldn't be miserable, uh, because then you won't do it. Yeah, I love it. So it should be profitable and enjoyable, and you can have both.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be enjoyable every single day because that's not realistic.
Right.
But it should be like you don't hate whatever the thing is.
Right. Right. Okay. Before we maybe move on to like managing introverts, is there anything else on like being an introverted agent that we missed here and we should hit?
Yes, take days off and take and go on retreats. Take yourself on a retreat by yourself, like maybe once a quarter, if not, or twice a year or something. Just take yourself on a weekend alone to totally do a deep recharge and also to collect your thoughts and just reflect.
I like that. That is probably smart, even if you're not an introvert.
Yes,
Uh,
correct.
yeah. Excellent. Okay, I want to transition a little bit into managing. So, I kind of coming back to that like stereotypical Wolf of Wall Street, like, sales mentality. There are some like really old school sales leaders that might look at an introvert and the way that they operate and say something along the lines of like, well, that person's not motivated. So help me bust this thing open. Like, first of all, why is that wrong? And two, like, how should you look at these agents and, kind of guess how or figure out how to help them?
Hmm. It happens a lot, unfortunately, because there is such a stereotype of what a quote unquote successful salesperson or real estate agent looks like. And I would encourage, um, we're talking about rainmakers on the team, or are we talking about somebody managing a brokerage?
So maybe someone managing the brokerage.
Okay. So somebody managing a brokerage, it's important to realize that by having multiple personalities on in your office, that's actually going to bring you a lot more business because you will have agents who connect with a wider variety of clients. If you only have, if you're a one note office, you're only going to get a slice of that market share. So I would embrace it. Let them be them, encourage them, be open to different lead gen strategies that they might suggest and help them find some alternatives that they're more comfortable with. So otherwise, if enough time passes, you're probably going to lose them.
Right. Because you keep trying to cram that, square peg into the round hole and they're not loving it.
Right. And that's going to translate into them not feeling supported.
Right. Excellent. I think also, just to emphasize, on the marketing side, we talk a lot about brands and creating situations that attract but don't repel. So I love your idea of having different personality types so you can match the client with the right agent. That's a great point.
Yeah, 100%. And you might have to tailor your tone and your energy level when you're one-on-one with that person.
Got it. You want to go a little bit deeper on that? Like, have you seen this go real wrong or real right? Any good stories on that?
I have, yeah. I'm going to share a story from somebody who's very close to me, and he runs a large brokerage. He has about 250 agents. And one of his agents is also a good friend of mine, and she has told him, you are really overwhelming in your energy sometimes, and I shut down. And
Yeah.
and I'm privy to these conversations because, I'm the introvert girl, so we all talk about it together. Um, and it was really eye-opening for him to realize how his excitement and enthusiasm, which are always good things in theory, they were actually causing one of his agents to shut down and draw inward because it was
Retreat.
just
Yeah.
too much. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe throttle down a little bit. So if you're a manager, we talked about the battery thing and seeing that, and that's definitely a feeling that people can feel inside. But if you're watching people, is there cues that you pick up on that might indicate that like something's discharging them faster than others? How
Yeah.
would you advise the high energy broker?
It might be hard to pinpoint what's slowing them down or making them feel drained, but you'll be able to pick up on clues if you're really paying attention. You'll be able to notice some people, again, retreating inward and being more quiet than normal. A very general statement is that introverts are more enthusiastic and outgoing and social one-on-one versus in a group. So if you're one-on-one with someone and they're still really reserved and quiet, maybe it's their personality, but maybe they're just really drained.
Mm,
And so if you're not, there's no real way for you to know that if you don't know this person super well. So I would just ask, as a broker owner, check in with your people and ask how they're doing. Ask if they are feeling like they're going to burn out. And that'll show them that you really care. And then if they say, yeah, I'm just really, oh, it's been a year or whatever, encourage them to take a day or two off.
mhm.
That's like the ultimate shift for, a lot of broker owners would never suggest that because they want you grinding a million hours a week. So if you're like, no, I care about you, I don't want you to get sick, I don't want you to burn out, I don't want you to leave my office, go take some time, take care of yourself.
Excellent. I think that's great advice. Uh, Tell us about your program and where people can find you.
Awesome. Thank you. People can find me on my website, moveoverextroverts.com. I also run a Facebook group called Introverts in Real Estate. And I have some one-on-one coaching that I do. I don't have space in my calendar or my energy to take on a lot of clients. So I probably have room for one or two more right now. And I'm teaching some virtual workshops this fall. So those will be via Zoom, just 1 hour workshops on different topics. One's for introverts, one's for avoiding burnout, one's for taking days off. It's all the things that I like to talk about and help people with because there are
Excellent.
very, very few of us are talking about these things.
Nice. Give us the domain name one more time.
Moveoverextroverts.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, it's been awesome talking to you. This is definitely a cool topic and definitely a different perspective from the traditional advice, I would say.
Yeah.
So this has been great. So thanks for listening to Keeping It Real. You can find us on all the podcast spots. Definitely give us a subscribe and a review. Really helps us out. Or if you're watching this on Facebook, give us a thumbs up because the social media platforms love that engagement. We'll catch